Hello silly people and welcome back to the channel. My name is Trey, and last week we started ink sketches. Practice our techniques and also speed by using other art to influence art that we're making. And this is the example from last week of Lore of the Silver Hand. And this was the initial jumping off illustration from Yoshitaka Amano, Vampire Hunter D, where I liked figure in the center, nice and dark, and there's something at his feet. He has his sword out, and that was the concept that helped to make this, where Lore of the Silver Hand, a moon, he's more or less centered. There's something, a person at his feet, and he has his sword out, and that was what we came up with as a jumping off from this. But for today's ink test sample illustration thing, we have again Yoshitaka Amano, Vampire Hunter D, and I like this composition. So we have the figure, Vampire Hunter D, and he has his arm out, and there's a structure here, and then there's deep shadows, right? Very thick, bold. So there's a nice down across, and even that's reflected in his cape. And so I like this idea for the premise of something to start with. Let's do a small illustration. Now this again is a small note card. We're gonna have the character and his arm will be out, and I want a pillar. But first so this is what I would call a thumbnail. So he's walking, he's got one foot behind the other, one arm out, and he has his other arm down with his sword. Now that's not reflected here, but that's what I would like. So he has his sword out, so there's danger. There is as the structure, we're gonna have, let's say, a pillar that is very much crumbling, and so it looks like he's almost holding this thing up, and so it's busted and it's about, or seemingly about, to topple, and this will be all in shadow. So the light source will be here, beams of light, and so all of this will be in shadow. Okay, and that we like this, well, I like this. So he's in shadow, and let's say there's another pillar we can't see, but it's also making a shadow. And then in between, let's say there's some kind of a monster shadow that is breaking up this empty space. So this was the initial Yoshitaka Amano, Vampire Hunter D, character, setting, shadows. You don't need anything fancy to make art. Just go. We have the character of Lore of the Silver Hand. His arm is out. There is this large pillar that is broken and is leaning. A light source. So all the shadows, the light's hitting this way, the shadows going this way. So pillar, another pillar that can't be seen but is casting a shadow. And between these two dark shadows is our monster. And that is the initial concept of what we're going to be doing for this example number 2, or sample number 2, of an ink sketch. And here's the computer and rough sketch. Then I take it to the Titan pencils. And now we are ready for inking. Alright, now I usually start off with the outlines, and I usually start with the character, because I feel once I get the character, I feel a sigh of relief and I move on to the backgrounds. So I'm starting with the G pen for the character, and then the crow quill for most of the background. And the extra elements, switch to a pen for the unicorn horn sword, but also the detailing and of the crumbling ruins. I like to do the detailing with a pen to get all of that. Okay, so now we have the basic structure, right? We have the pencils, some inks, some pens, and now we're going to block in. Well, first we're going to do some value, and then we're going to do some slightly watered down ink for the background, and we're going to go from back to front, and it'll get bolder and bolder in inks as we go forward. So let's go. All right, so now we're starting with the far background, and we want this ink wash to have a bit of texture, and then hopefully we're going to stain it and then fade it back. And we're going to work from back to front, making the things the lightest in the background, and then go bolder and bolder as we come forward. So I think I'm going to have to do multiple rounds, but this is how we start. And so now I have this darker that I'm staining into the already wet ink wash that I'm doing in the background. And you have to do it while it's nice and fresh and very wet to make it a softer, right? It'll diffuse into the water. And so you get a softer look. The more it dries, the harder and deeper the darks will be. And now the pillar with the character just in front of it is one of the most important areas of the whole picture. And so I'm trying ink wash, staining, and then we'll do some pen hatching on top to get the smaller details in areas that are closer to the character, so that I'm not, messing it up and going over areas I shouldn't. But this is all the process. And now as we're coming forward, we're at the monster area. And for the monster, it's one of the most important parts of this whole image, as it gives some tension to it. But I'm going to do it as rough and loose as I will allow, because I don't want it to be fully formed. I want it to look like slightly smeary shadow creature. We don't know if the shadow is the creature or the creature is casting a shadow, but we want to create some tension with this creature and Lore looking at it. And now that we have most of the creature in, but we still have work to do to get it to look exactly the way I wish, but we have it blocked in. And now we can work on this foreground, which is this pillar in front. So we only see a part of it, and that's the shadow side. And so this is a sort of framing device. You have sometimes a character or something standing in the extreme foreground, and in darkness or some kind of a shadow that'll make the character look like it's in the distance, but also make it pop. And it's a framing device for the whole image. And so I'll be going over this a couple of times to make it as dark and bold as possible. Now, because this is an ink sketch, I'm going faster than normal. In a proper illustration, I tend to take more of my time and work things out just to get everything just so. But in a sketch, you can move quicker because you're just trying to get your ideas out and then check them against what reality is and what you have in your mind. And once you have those things, then you can take it to another level. But this is an ink sketch. So again, I'm staining and dropping in some darker inks. All right, so now that we have the inking blocked in, now it's time for the long, arduous process of microns and correction fluid for the cleanup. Now, to start the detailing process, I usually go for the character first and the area around the character, because those are the focus areas. Most important for the audience, and so that's what I focus on first, and then I bounce around the whole image, and usually returning back to the character or the important parts of the image, and go back and forth and in between all of that. So for the character, I'm using the pen to do some hatching to make the darkness for the pants, the boots, and the shadows on him, but also to get closer, the shadows of the pillar closer to the character, and to clean up anything that I want to show that isn't well defined here, I try to punch those up, but there's a lot of bouncing around and movement to try to get it to the where I want it to be. And then after that, it's on to the pillar, which I'm shading the far side, well, the shadow side, but it's not as deep as, you know, part of the pillar. But we're just punching that up. All right, and so here we have more or less what we got inked. And now let's do some correction fluid. I want this eye. And that's the white jelly roll. But also, whenever I want to break up things, sometimes they can look a bit too uniform. Wherever you feel it is needed, go for it. But I think we're good. And that was the white out. After I let it sit, walk away, come back either a couple hours later or even a full day or so later, and you'll see stuff that you didn't see before, because sometimes you're too hyper focused and you need to walk away and then come back. So this is how it started, with the thumbnail and a very small index card, just to get out the idea. And then we worked it up in computer to get the darkness and shading. And now this is the final. This is where we started, right? Yoshitaka Amano's Vampire Hunter D. I liked it because of the character, arm out, and then there will be this structure, and then these lines that I liked for this composition. And so from here, as the base idea, we went to this, where character, arm out, and then we have these bold black lines, and I like it. So this is another example of how we can take an idea and then try to build off of that with our own art. So thank you for joining me. I have been Trey Hodges. You can find my work at treyhodges.com. Power to all the creators, and I want you to remember to keep shining. See you next time.